Okay, we're back in session. Okay, Dylan, we're going to go to Chapter 400, Article 8.
Perfect. We'll start on page 19. This will be section 400.700, applicability, and essentially we're talking about landscaping and screening for this Article 8. Applicability, it's going to be applicable to all new structures, buildings, and parking lots, and they must comply with these outlined requirements within Article 8. And it also, again, goes with parking lots, but it says if an addition is proposed to a building, an additional building is proposed on a lot, or if an expansion of a parking lot is proposed, this would all still apply. Any questions on that section?
I think not.
Okay. Section 400.710, landscaped area requirements. You've got letters A, B, and C, and essentially you'll see a table there that just talks about the different types of uses and the required landscaping. One thing to kind of clarify is obviously detached single-family dwellings, we're not going to require them to have a monolith of landscaping. It's 50% of the lot that needs to be like covered in some type of vegetation, whether it be sod or some intertwined mix of landscaping. But we're not going to have them like submit a landscape plan that shows that they have to meet 50% by pretty much sod. So it's not nearly quite as in depth than we would for like a commercial industrial use, but also it talks about just placement of landscaping and how that section is not applicable to any detached dwellings. And then foundation landscaping, again, that's not applicable to any residential house. That's all for commercial or industrial. Yep. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
On the detached family single dwellings, is 50% the current, or isn't it a higher rate right now? I mean, you can only build on a certain amount or cover a certain amount of your lot.
I would say it is at a higher rate, but it's more or less just because we don't necessarily have we don't really have a percentage spelled out for like accessory structures and those types of things.
Right.
We just say you can have two accessory structures, one at 120 or below, and then one that's above that, but you can't go above the size of your house. And it's also dependent upon your lot, and that's obviously kind of a change that we talked about in Article 3, is that essentially with accessory structures and all of that, you can't exceed 30% of the lot, and that includes like your house, your driveway, if you have a patio or a pool, all those types of things.
So total of impervious surface could be no more than 30% of your lot.
That's correct.
Okay,
that's correct.
All right, thank you.
I would say the only thing that could be kind of questionable is like a public sidewalk, if we would include that or not. I would say probably not, because it's not technically on their property. It's in the right of way.
Right. Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Section 400.720, and that's on the bottom of page 19, parking lot landscaping, and it really just differentiates between interior parking lot and perimeter parking lot. And if you think of the interior being pretty much anything that's abuts the building, that's going to be kind of your interior parking lot, and then the perimeter is going to be anything that's kind of on the outside of the asphalt that typically touches property boundaries or roads or those types of things. I guess City Hall would be a good example for like what a landscape island would be. Essentially, within this code, it talks about for every 10 parking spaces, you have to have landscaping or landscaping in your islands. So it's one shade tree and 3 shrubs. We have landscape islands, so when you leave tonight and you look at that, that's essentially what that is. Now, I will say it's mainly gravel right now, but that's what a landscape island would be called. So if you question what it looks like, take a look outside. That's essentially what landscape island is. But happy to answer any questions on this.
Well, I'm thinking of some situations I have seen where obviously this is a requirement and those trees have gotten significantly large, and now it impedes traveling in the parking lots because the trees are large enough that you can't see around the corner. Or and then the other thing was probably anything new coming in, developing is going to be underground utilities. But with the new requirement of the utility companies being able to come in and cut a tree down within 40 foot
Right.
of the center,
Yep.
I don't want to approve something that we're going to have trees planted in, and then Evergy says, "Oh wait, I can cut down all these trees because they're within 20 foot of the power line." So,
Sure.
but I'm thinking that most power lines that we have in a new thing is going to be underground.
Yeah, I would say that most of them are now. Obviously, the older part of town, they definitely have some overhead lines. And honestly, I mean, they're still going to be required to maintain their landscaping, and that's something that, as we talk later on, like, that's something that we don't really have now. We require it up front that, hey, this site must have all this stuff, but then, like, at, day 2, they rip it out. It's like, well, we don't really have anything to tell them, hey, you need to keep it, and there's a section here that now says you must maintain it for the life of the project, or as per what the approved site plan was.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Real small section, loading areas, and that's on the middle of page 20. This just talks about, so again, tonight it was talked about, if there's a product being dropped off at a convenience store or a commercial business, essentially they're going to have to designate where that's going to be. And then it just talks about a type A landscape screening required along any property line that abuts a residential. Pretty small, but if you have any questions.
Proceed.
Bottom of page 20, site trees. And if you guys get lost, just let me know. I'll say the section number, but I'm going to try and keep it fairly light. Essentially, we're talking about placement of trees, and just essentially you'll see in B where, especially for really any plan that we get that's a landscape plan, we don't really want to have anything more than 50% of the same species of trees, because obviously, different types of insects and beetles and those types of things, if they come through and infest that, I mean, most of your trees are gone. So it's just kind of being good stewards of what we're requiring, and making sure that we're not going to lose half of it because of one season that it got crazy. Questions?
Isn't there, and I don't remember seeing it in here, but isn't there some place in our code now that it specifies what kind of trees you can have and can't have?
There is. You really have to dig for it, and honestly, I kind of want to comb through it and just see if there's anything, because one of the things in here talks about just with the placement of trees, you want to make sure it's not going to start heaving sidewalks and those types of things, and so we just want to make sure the root systems that they're going to be selecting are not going to hurt our infrastructure. And so I really want to take a good look at that before we. That is one thing that it's not presented tonight, but it will be part of the adoption of this code, right?
Thank you. Larry?
I asked the question of Dylan, and he gave me an answer, but I see oak trees, there are a lot of oak trees that have a disease, but another kind of oak tree does not have that disease. And so I was asking him, so we're talking about oak trees, so we're going to put them all together and say, whether it's bur oak or northern red oak, we're going to limit them to oaks, the 50%. So I understand that, but there are a lot of diseases that are only for a kind of oak tree, and the other ones aren't affected. I have nothing wrong with it. It's just that I was explaining, or trying to extend out myself. When you talk about species, are you eliminating all of them? And the answer was yes.
And honestly, right now we don't really restrict the species of trees. If the builder puts out an oak and it's throughout the whole street, okay, you met your requirement of one street tree. So this is kind of to try and do a little bit more and require a little bit more during the review process, so that we ensure that they're not just going to saturate us with one type of tree and then, oops, the beetle came through and now there's no trees. So.
Hedge apples.
Yeah.
I have some on trees.
No. I've had those before.
They'll kill everything around them.
The next section will be street trees, and this just kind of talks about the city engineer will determine whether it's an arterial or a collector street, and that kind of determines the planting requirements depending upon the classification of the road.
there's a minor typo on number 4. Required street trees must be installed, and I think it has to be the word in the street right away.
You would not want them in the street right away.
Okay.
Required
Required street trees must be installed the right away.
Yeah, I see what you mean. No, it should not be. We wouldn't want street trees in the right of way because that means now we have to maintain them. So,
Okay, so what does that mean? So what does this mean?
so required street trees must be installed street right of way within 10 feet of the street right of way. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at it.
Okay, so that
Reword
Would
it.
question that.
Yeah. Because that also says or within 10 feet of the street right of way, and honestly,
Correct.
that's where I would prefer it to be within 10 feet of the street right of way, not in the right of way.
is there anything that says how close that has to be to a sidewalk or away from a sidewalk?
That just says within the right of way, which the right of way is 11 feet in most places. So 10 feet would be between 11 and 21 feet. But again, I think that goes back to your plant species, where if you're allowing root systems to stay very close to the top of the soil, then that's what's going to start causing problems. And then there's plenty of street trees, especially downtown Lee Summit, that are planted and they're completely surrounded by sidewalk. Those are the types of trees that you're going to want to see in those types of areas. And they don't heed the sidewalk or the street. I will go back. I apologize.
That's just to see if we were paying attention.
Sure. It's nothing
1 hour and 40
nothing like
minutes in.
2 pages. Any questions on that? I do apologize for number 4. That is definitely my fault.
That's what you got us for, to catch these things.
Sure.
Or Larry.
I'd like to just catch it initially, but yes. This next section of screening requirements, really the biggest thing is this table that you'll see here. This is kind of what I was referring to earlier tonight, where if you've got a C1 zone property and it goes up to or abuts an R1, it would require a Type A landscape screening properties. That's essentially so any project that comes in, whatever zoning they're in, and then whatever they abut, they will have to follow these requirements. That's kind of how you read that table. And then underneath it talks about what a Type A is, what a Type B is, and what a Type C is.
I applaud those illustrations. I think they speak volumes when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
showing what it is.
Any questions there, Jim? Did you have any questions there?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. You good? Proceed.
Planting list, this is kind of what I was talking to you guys about earlier, is I need to formulate that list and make sure that we're not going to be allowing the trees that are either invasive or are going to cause us issues down the road. We definitely want to make sure we have good, healthy trees, and something that's going to be not a huge maintenance nightmare for us. But that's just kind of just saying that we should have a planting list on hand, so if somebody were to ask, and maybe even a residential property owner that says, hey, I'd like to plant a couple things. I want to make sure I'm planting something good. You guys have a list that I can see. Absolutely. Questions on that? Tree preservation and existing vegetation. We haven't gotten into this a whole lot just because we don't have necessarily the development that other cities have. But when they do pull a land disturbance permit and they want to take out trees, typically most developers will take every single tree that they possibly can out. Helps them, doesn't necessarily help us. And so this is kind of a, hey, if you will preserve some trees, you will get credit for that. Especially good ones. We're not talking about the ones that are mangy and covered in brush, but something that can be cleaned up and be a nice, 50-year-old oak tree or something like that. And so this is kind of that first step towards trying to preserve some of those trees. Now, it doesn't necessarily require it. It just kind of says, hey, if you want some credit given back to you, this would be the way to do that. Plant materials, so this just discusses plant selection, the size of trees, shrubs, and hedges. Maintenance is really the big thing in this section. This is kind of what I was telling you about, how it really starts requiring the fact that you put it in, if it dies, you need to replace it with something else or very similar. And then you just need to keep your landscaping in good maintenance, and those are typically for your commercial and industrial properties that house the public. Questions on that? Okay. Trash and recycling receptacle screening. So right now, I think, not sure how this happens, but there's definitely been a couple of commercial businesses that have went in with really just a 6-foot privacy. I'm not even sure if the boards are treated wood, and they typically are day one almost bowed. So it obviously causes issues for the trash trucks. It's kind of unsightly, but we really don't have a whole lot of. We do have a current code that just kind of says it should look like the building, but if the building has wood or something of that nature, they kind of say, oh, well, it's similar. I will also say that one of the big changes that we've had as well is that our original company, IBTS, was really just looking for code, like building code stuff, not necessarily all of our other codes that we have to uphold. And so that's kind of the change here, is that now we have an in-house building inspector, and before any of these businesses get a temporary CO, we kind of go through with a final walkthrough that says, here's your checklist, and we need to make sure you have all this stuff before we can give you a CO. So, a little different than I think it's maybe been in-house before. But the trash enclosure, it needs to have either steel or vinyl doors. If they are going to use EPIS, the bottom 3 feet need to have some brick, stucco, or some type of decorative material on top of that wood, if you will. So instead of just allowing a straight wood fence, some type of decoration to it.
This is just for new
New
correct. Building.
That is correct. Now, if somebody says, "Hey, we need to build a new one," they would have to.
Adhere to this. Okay, that was going to be my question.
But
gotcha.
Anything that exists today, technically, they're in compliance with the current code.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? Okay.
Screening of
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
We're going back just a little bit, but I visited about this grass on B on 400, 800 down at the bottom, paragraph B.
Page 26.
About hydroseeding or sod before a permit is occupancy permit. We all know the stories of when the builder has finished a home and it's winter and there's no sod available, and there's no seed, or it's summertime and it's July and not going to put down sod. So, that's a hard one to deal with. But there can be good reasons for exceptions to that rule.
Well, we try our best to work with the builders on these. Typically, our TCOs are good for 120 days. So typically, if you're building in November and snow hits, we're willing to work with you to kind of make sure that we can get you some sod, not necessarily uphold somebody from moving into the house. But we're not great historically about making sure that those TCOs get closed out and become a CO. And so obviously, again, now having someone in-house who essentially looks every month and says what's expired, what's not, that's made a world of difference. Because I know when I was here the very first tour of my duty here, there was houses that have been on TCO for 3 or 4 years. So it can happen. It's not supposed to happen, but it does.
Okay. Anything else? Sorry, anything
No.
else? Okay. All right.
Screening of mechanical equipment, we do have kind of a code that exists now. This just kind of beefs it up a little bit. It talks about rooftop equipment, equipment that's going to be, adjacent to the commercial business being screened, as well as just any utility facilities that are going to be proposed. I know typically when you start having higher density residential or commercial, that typically you'll have those big giant electrical boxes, and it kind of just does something to it's an attempt to try and make the utility to do a little something as opposed to just put it in their front yard and leave it, because it just doesn't look great. So, but we don't have anything like that really currently. So. Page 28, right-of-way ground surface. Discusses requiring maintenance of maintenance agreements. This is honestly going to kind of get outside of my department. Those would be agreements for stormwater, things of that nature, facilities that will have to be on record for Jill and her group with the Public Works Department, just making sure that they have agreements in place that kind of say who's going to maintain what and who's going to do what. So that just kind of puts this into place here.
Okay.
Oh, Jim.
I'm sorry, I had a real quick question back on 27. I didn't mean to jump back
No,
on you,
that's
Dylan,
okay.
but on the screening there on the A3 down there, the slat screening.
Yes.
Now, I think that's what the storage unit on the west side of 49 over there did, but I think all the slat screening is gone, and now it's just chain link. Because it started out something like that. So is there a maintenance requirement on that stuff? Because, I mean, they put it up, it all falls apart, and then all of a sudden you got chain link sitting there.
What was the business?
It's that, up that storage building, down past the, on the west side of.
On the outer road?
Yeah, on the outer, well, yeah.
Okay.
Down where they were gonna put the police station.
Okay.
Down by the, whatever that pallet company is now, or whatever they're doing down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a chain link now. I mean, I
there's
drove
a
down,
couple of those chain link fences
Huh?
down there.
and it was started out as a slat, because I know it was supposed to be opaque
Screened.
when
Yeah.
he did it. He screamed at bloody heck when he did that.
Sure.
And now it's just down to chain link. So is there a maintenance requirement on this?
I would say
on
there
this,
should. I would say there should be. Yeah, I would
Flat screen stuff, because.
Yeah, there should be some screening down there. So I would agree. And I think the barbecue relief has that, where you can see straight through. There's a couple of businesses that have that. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a section of wood fencing there and stuff, and I think there's a section of vinyl fencing there,
I'll put
and then there's a bunch of chain link.
I'll put our heads together, me and Mindy, and see, because it may just be a violation if we
Okay. Anyway, I just want to make sure that flat screening has some kind of thing down the road that it's got to be kept in good shape. But I
Yeah,
think you've got
absolutely.
that in here somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it talks about that'd be letter D, top of page 28. All waste disposal, recycling receptacles, grease traps, trash compactors shall be maintained in a safe, structurally sound condition and then present a uniform appearance, so as not to constitute a hazard, blight, or condition of disrepair.
But that's waste disposal. That's not the.
That's true. Yeah. But I mean, I think even when you go back up here to the screening requirements, I mean that's in place in perpetuity, in my opinion.
Okay. As long as it's covered.
I don't think at
somewhere
some
or
point they're
another,
like, well.
like I say, it just turned into chain link now, and so
Yeah,
it's
that should not be. That should not be.
any blockage up there.
Good point. Well, actually,
That would essentially conclude Article 8. If there's any questions on that, I'm happy to answer. And I'll say this like I do every time. If something comes up, this is not your only chance. We've got plenty of time to look at the rest of these articles, but if there's something that just burns at you and we need to discuss it, we absolutely can. Article 9 should be quick. It's pretty much stricken. Now, I will say there's a caveat that Article 9 will exist, However, I just need to be able to put the code sections that I think, because you'll have to reserve some code sections so that if in the future we want to adopt a code that doesn't really fit within any of the articles, this would be a place to kind of reserve that space and have it available. The goal with this was pretty much everything in this section I've either already allocated to another article that we've already talked about, am going to allocate, or are going to completely strike from. So this should go away completely, except for just the listing of it. And if you indulge me for 1 second, we already have something like that now, where it says Article 7 reserved. That's essentially what we're going to be. Any questions on that? We're cruising right along, guys.
I like these articles.
Okay, so I'm going to call out a second mistake that I made before anyone else does. This Article 11 should be in blue. It is all black, which historically I've told you if it's in black, it's existing code. Everything in here is blue. Imagine it, mark it in your head. This is not existing in any way, shape, or form. This is all new code. So this talks about development review procedures. Go ahead.
Okay, you've gone now to page
62. Sorry.
Okay, right. So,
62.
and I know Dylan and I talked about this, and I'm going to go back.
Yep.
And he looked it up back on a section here where it talks about storm shelter uses in homes. Slabs that were built were, for a while after 2011 and the Joplin tornado, there was a real push to try to make houses safer for tornadoes. And slab houses had to have a concrete bathroom for protection. And there for a while we had something about that. It was kind of flaky because you could get out of it, and most people did. But, I guess I just would hate to think that 2 years from now we have a big tornado with peculiar in, let's say, because it wouldn't involve, down here, the fourplexes on across from Centennial Farms. I'm drawing blank here. I have a senior moment. The senior housing. There's no shelter. There's a shelter probably for that housing. They have a shelter.
Yes.
Yeah, but let's
Carriage
say some
Meadows
other
has
houses
one.
in the area were all slabs, and there's not a place to go.
Right.
It's a catch-22. We can't protect everything, or protect everybody from everything. But there was a real push after Joplin for something to be done about protecting families, and now we're kind of 20 years later, we're kind of saying, well, that's no longer the need.
Well, it's in our current code, isn't it? I mean, is that what some of you struck?
But we're
that's
we're
something.
removing it.
That's something that essentially, as long as the builder signs off saying, yeah, we don't need it, or we are aware that this place has tornadoes, they get out of it. And so,
Yeah, I don't like that either. I mean, I thought we had that pretty well set, but they
we
handed
do.
it.
It's current now.
Okay,
But
yeah.
but with what is being proposed, I mean, we don't see a whole lot of slab homes. So that kind of mixes a lot of it out. I mean, most of these subdivisions that are coming in all have basements.
Well, all the multifamily, or most of those have basements, or most of those slabs?
But you have a lot of
So-
split entries that only have 4-foot concrete walls. A lot of split entries.
Even with
California split, or whatever they're called, split entries are going to have 4-foot of concrete wall, but not 8.
So it talks about exemptions. They don't apply if you're remodeling or doing anything that's totals more than 50% of the current assessed value, which I don't know who tracks that, honestly. If you're redoing the house, you're redoing the house. There's not really a percentage. They're like, oh, I'm doing 35% of it.
I guess I'm just saying, are we aware that we're doing away with any restriction regarding storm shelters for any house. So that's all I'm saying.
Who's the builder down across from you? I love you. It's gonna be retirement and turned into,
Windmill,
yeah,
windmill, Ted Hayes.
Yeah, Ted. Because Ted put them into all of his houses, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I live there. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And the current builder's doing the same thing.
Is he?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought Ted did a great job down there.
And I built a couple, and Dylan knows this, I built a couple split entries in Centennial Farms, and one had to have it, and one didn't, because like the requirement, if one was a spec house, I had to have it, but if the next house I built was the same house, but the builder's buyer said they didn't need it, then they signed off on it, I didn't have to do it. But they only had 4-foot concrete walls, and there's really no place to go for storm shelter in those split entry or slabs. And you know, all I'm bringing it up for is to say that has been in here, there's something about it, but how many cities are doing it? And like Dylan says, he thinks there's very few, if any, that are making that requirement.
Very few.
But it was very common after the Joplin tornado, and my point is,
Yeah,
it'll
'cause
be
this was
common
adopted
again
in
after
2014.
the next tornado.
I mean, I'm all for it, but then I'm not a builder and I don't have to
Yeah.
put out that extra money, so.
Yeah.
I know Johnson County requires it, but what they require is a storm shelter. It doesn't matter if it's concrete, post-bought, you know.
It could be in the ground outside or in the garage
Yes.
or something.
You can even buy those as long as you have it in your plan. I mean, and technically the homeowner, once they take possession, could remove it. But, so I don't know, but I do agree, you know. I know that's all, because I build out there a lot, so I know they require it, but again, haven't seen a slab in many years.
Anything else? Okay.
So this article is actually probably the most meaningful to me. When I came on here day one, I kind of already had an idea of our processes, but it is very difficult to try and explain our process to an applicant, to the public, to a coworker, because we've had, you know, a number of new employees come aboard, and I've had to try and explain it, and they're like, go over that one more time. This is created to hopefully make it a little more clear. And so if I'm not the one in the position, or, you know, somebody else comes in and they're looking at our code, they're trying to figure out what to do, they may not necessarily have the question because it's very clearly spelled out in this article. And so that was this is the biggest thing that I wanted to improve on the code, if there was one, from an administrative point, because it really does tell you this is the process, here are the requirements, and if you want to, you know, let's say a decision was made and you want to appeal that. Here's who you appeal it to. Here's when you hold a public hearing. Here's when you don't. It's a lot more clear, and it's all in one section, as opposed to right now it's like the special use permits have a section over here, and then you've got the preliminary plat over here, and the final plat down here, and this is all in one article that everybody can read. It makes it a little simpler. But the table really is kind of the overarching, like, and I guess I'll explain this real quick. So R is for recommendation. D is for decision, A is for appellate authority, and kind of your brackets is the public hearing requirement. So any letter you see in brackets requires a public hearing. I know I had a question earlier about what is an appellate authority. It's essentially, so when I make a determination of code and someone disagrees with that, as long as it's in a code requirement, essentially they can appeal that to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and they're the appellate authority, if you will. So just to kind of explain that a little bit. One of the questions before I really move on is, so right now I have been given the interpretation from city attorney. Site plans are not necessarily something that comes to this board. We just kind of talked about this tonight. There's no code requirement really for it, unless it's in a CP, which is a planned commercial business district, which we have 0 of. And honestly, I'm not sure of how much the process was necessarily followed in prior years. I know Scooters had a development plan with it. I'm not sure that was necessarily required, given the fact that a site plan is an administrative. There's nothing that says it has to go to any board. So if you'll look in there, it does kind of talk about D for decision and then appeal to the planning commission. Or it talks about I can make a recommendation and it'll go to the planning commission. So historically, at least from previous employment, they did do a site plan at the planning commission level. It didn't go to the board. It was just, does it meet code? And then they sign off on it and it's done. I kind of wanted to bring it back to you all to kind of decide. Obviously, I kind of like it the way it is now. It's less, because depending upon when they file the application, it could be an additional 30 days on top of maybe they had to rezone the property, maybe it was a preliminary plat, maybe, like it could, the longer the process takes, the more money it costs for somebody to get here. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible without, completely undercutting you guys from what you do. So this is one that I really wanted to kind of talk about and gather because it does matter. And honestly, if we want commercial development, every one of them is going to require site plans. So it is a big deal.
So you're asking if we want to keep it to bring it to this board,
Yep.
but it doesn't go to the Board of Aldermen currently.
Correct. Well, currently it doesn't go to any board. It doesn't go to the planning commission. It doesn't go to the board of aldermen. It's just a city staff review.
If this board wouldn't, if it never hits the Board of Aldermen, it wouldn't matter if it comes to this board or not. It's your decision, is in your job title and your job description to.
And honestly, I kind of look at it kind of like construction plans, right? So when a preliminary plat is approved, and the next step for the applicant is to submit construction drawings, which is water, sewer, stormwater, street profiles. I mean, it's a very technical document, and that gets reviewed by Public Works. City engineer. So I'm like, I don't see what the difference between that is in the site plan. But I wanted to highlight it, shoot it to you all, because that is definitely something that I want to be transparent. If that's okay with you all, if that's the way I'd like to proceed, but at the end of the day, tell me what you want.
I mean, yeah, I look at it, all we're doing is making recommendations, but you guys are doing each and every category in your departments to approve it. I mean, we're not an engineer, we're not a development director, If it's not gonna go past this board, it's kind of a step that doesn't need to be done, I don't think.
I agree. Jim?
Well, I'm guessing, explain it to me a little bit further. When you say a site plan, let's say this convenience store that was gonna go in. If it had just been a convenience store, then it wouldn't have showed up here to us at all, is what you're saying.
For the special use permit.
No, I'm saying, if it just been a convenience store.
Technically, the convenience store still requires a site plan. So the convenience store would have had to come here if that's how we set it up in the table.
So it would come before us then. Okay, well, I like that.
And that's where I'm kind of leaving it up to you. I
I like to be able to
preference,
see
but
what's coming in and get sort of a feel for it, and be able to discuss it.
the one thing we have to do though is if it gets to that point, you cannot deny the application. If it meets code, you cannot deny it. If you do deny it, you have opened us up for worlds of hurt and litigation. And that is the one thing if there's anything I'm trying to get us out of, it is not having court hearings.
Well, at that point in time, that's why I say, I think that's why things have to be fairly tight on what we will allow and won't allow, to allow for a variation if we want to do it.
Remember, a site plan does not allow you to say, no, you don't like the project. It is, does it meet code or not?
No, is what I'm saying is to tighten up. I mean, we went through, spent months doing that silly matrix, and then it's changed around a lot now. It's been moved around, and so the matrix no longer is really what we went through and said, yeah, well, we want to think about that one, or we don't want to think about that one. And so if we're going to open it all up to any kind of store or a restaurant or a drive-through is a restaurant or a thing, I don't know how to define that stuff then, because I mean, at that point in time, what are we even doing here? I mean, other than saying, well, we think this property ought to be zoned commercial rather than residential. Other than that, we don't have a view of what's coming into town and have an option of it, because it's all set in stone, then, yeah, I guess there's no reason for us to see it. I mean, I'd love to see it, I'd love to know, but at the same time, if I gotta say, okay, well, I agree with this, even though I don't agree with it.
And that's what I don't want to set us up for, is that just because you don't like the proposal doesn't mean that you can say anything other than yes.
So
As long as it meets code. They're putting the screening where they need to put it. There's not, the photometric plan doesn't show, 10-foot candles on someone else's property. There's enough parking spaces. Let's say it's a drive-through, they got to have vehicle stacking, and do they meet that? That's it. Like, you can't really say, well, I don't like the way it looks.
Well, I mean, that's what the citizens here are saying, and I don't wanna have a convenience store, even if it's within walking distance to me.
I will also say the citizens can say whatever they want.
Well, I understand that,
They're
but
not
they
held
are
to the same standard we are.
That's what I'm here for, is the citizens, not for the city necessarily. I mean, I'm here to work with the city on making a livable city for the citizens.
Sure.
And if the citizens don't want something, I mean, after when we first moved out here, Flying J was just coming in, we thought it was gonna be a great little cafe out there, and all of a sudden it's a big giant gas station. We heard that there was a huge commotion against Flying J.
Oh, there
that
was.
we didn't realize,
Oh, there was.
because we were just
Amen.
new to the city. So, there are certain things that the citizens may not want that fit into the category, and what are we gonna do then? What are we supposed to do?
Well, the hope is that after this gets adopted, we go to the comprehensive plan, which will say what we want.
Okay.
Because I think that our comprehensive plan is pre-COVID. I think there are a lot of shopping centers that don't get built anymore that we supposedly want. And there's a lot of things that I think we need to readdress, just given the fact of the trends that are currently happening, not what was happening 11 years ago. A lot of things have changed. We kind of did it out of order. It should have been the comprehensive plan and then the code rewrite, but the comprehensive plan needs to go now with the code. But there's also going to be public input for that. What do they want to see? We want to know that. But at the same point, you and I have had this conversation before. If it's just residential, it is going to be a tough road ahead to sustain all the things that we currently have and still need to fix.
All right. That was my little vote for the evening.
No, I'm sure there's one more coming.
So when we hit PUDs,
I can almost guarantee when we hit that, we're going to have another discussion.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Okay. Keep going.
Okay. This is going to be on page 68. Zoning map and text amendment. If you already know what these mean, I'm not trying to talk to you like you're 5, but I want to go over it. A zoning map amendment is essentially any time we rezone a property. This is our official zoning map. And when we rezone a property, we're essentially saying, yes, we're authorizing the change for any one of those properties to be changed from one zoning to another. That is a rezoning or a zoning map amendment. The zoning map amendment is more formal. I call it a rezoning, but they're very, very interchangeable. A text amendment is what we're doing right now. It's the code rewrite. You're essentially amending the text for code, whether that's in one section, whether that's in a whole article, or whether that's in chapters 400 and 405 like we're trying to do. That's kind of the difference, so I kind of want to lay that groundwork there for you. And then it just talks about the procedure of what needs to happen with either of these two items or applications that would be filed. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I guess the last little thing is you'll see findings of fact. This is going to be something that is, we have a couple of applications that have findings of fact. There are going to be many more applications now that are going to have findings of fact. What I will say is findings of fact are really the biggest thing that you should focus on any staff report. Because if you don't agree with the findings of fact, that's a reason that you could deny the application. It's not because, I said that final plat was approved in 99. it's because, there's something that talks about the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And let's say there was something in there that you didn't agree with or that directly impacts code. That is what you can go in and say, hey, due to finding a fact, letter A, I have to vote no for this. Not because of something in the staff comments or something that, Public Works said. The findings of fact are really because when I say staff recommends approval and submits their findings of fact to the Planning Commission, that's what I'm submitting. And so that is really what you're looking at. You're not looking at everything else. Everything else is kind of fluff and just history and facts. The findings of fact are really what you're reviewing for the application. Does it make sense? Does it not? And does it go with our code? Especially for Planning Commission. BOA, they have a little bit broader spectrum to be able to kind of look at. But Planning Commission, findings of fact are your biggest one. But each of these applications will have a set findings of fact. And for every application, if you submit a preliminary plat, you're going to have a finding of fact, the same ones every time you have a preliminary plat. We don't necessarily have that right now. So it's kind of just, how do you feel today? I want it to be on a little bit more merit-based and kind of technical expertise from myself, rather than just, here's the facts, approve it, say. Special use permits, again, kind of outlines the procedure there. Questions, I mean, obviously, there's really not a whole lot of differences. One thing I will say, and this is kind of up for discussion again, with public notices, we currently notify everyone within 300 feet of the subject property. 300 feet is a large distance. I've contacted Belton, I've contacted Raymore, I've contacted Harrisonville, I've contacted Pleasant Hill, I've contacted Grandview. They all go off the state statute, which is 185 feet. I need to know what that means for you all.
Sounds good to me.
I'd agree with state statute.
I would.
Yeah.
And we just went through a process with the board where we took the comprehensive fee schedule to them, and we have drastically lowered our fees in almost every category. A single-family home that was $10,300 for a permit is now $8,100. So we have saved real money for builders to be able to kind of come in and hopefully build a good product. But we've also made some substantial changes on the commercial side. And again, I think the way we're kind of going is trying to promote development to come here, not necessarily, make it shy away. So this is kind of that. Kind of us doing that another step forward. We also used to charge the applicant for sending out each and every notice. We charge them 79 cents a letter. We charge them $60 to be able to put it on paper, and now we're just making it where it's part of the application fee, making them pay that on top of that. So anything that we do above and beyond that is really just costing the city money. So, not saying it's insignificant, just as a change, and that is something I wanted to point out. It's not just something you breeze over.
I'm wondering why the city, not the city, why the state how long has it been 185?
It's a very long time.
Has it? Okay. So, and we used to be more than 300. Is that correct?
No. We used to do certified letters at $7 a piece.
Yes.
300.
For 300?
For 300, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now it's just a letter.
Now it's regular mail at 300.
I mean, would we have had less people here tonight if we had had 185? Not that we want less, but I mean, the question is.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think if they're
real
opposed, they're
close.
going to tell their
But if
neighbor to
they-
come.
I don't think so, especially all those backyards.
I mean, you have the sign out. You notice the newspaper. We put it on the website. We put it on the bulletins here. We send it out to notify them. I mean, we're doing everything we can to try and notify somebody of something.
Yeah.
Jim?
Just my point of criticism, Dylan, not criticism, but that sign is so small
Yeah.
that there's no way to see it. It's a yellow dot as you're driving past. There's no way to stop on that street to read it if you wanted to. So unless you know that it's a signage saying something along those lines, I think those signs are not considered worthwhile to me.
We also get calls all the time for things that look different. And that would be something that I would expect. Hey, I don't necessarily know what the sign says, but there's something out in my backyard. Can you tell me what it is? I mean, for the whole thing that happened tonight, I got one call. One. Like, if you have questions, start with me. I'm the one who is intimately aware of the project to try and see if I can help you. And if I can, I can. I just have to provide you information, factual information that I can provide you. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. But I'm trying to provide every means of accessibility to where you can figure out what's going on. I mean, aside from maybe doing something on the website that just pinpoints actively where current applications are, I don't know what else we can do. But honestly, there's one application active, and not 20.
Well, I was just saying, no, I just think that sign is small. Sure. I mean, it's not something that I would consider quote.
Those signs are also $500. So.
Really?
Because the frame out there is not cheap. We used to do
I
the
didn't
little
see a
flimsy
frame
things.
on it. I just
It's
thought it
a
looked like one of those.
It is a black powder coated frame to like go several feet into the ground. Because before it used to be the little flimsy aluminum ones that all with the wind it would just go like this. That's not reasonable.
No, I do think that people that live close to it, to your point, I think people that live close do wonder what's going on. I mean, us that
Absolutely.
don't.
I would.
Clearly they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the consensus is 185 is okay.
I'm
Yeah.
still at 300 myself, but I mean, I'm not.
Is that, do we need to vote on that, or is it just?
I think he just needs consensus.
Consensus.
Okay.
Please don't vote on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever we do, we cannot vote on it.
I guess I would rather err on over than under, my opinion.
I'm for the 185.
Yeah, I'm for the 185.
Me too.
As well.
I'd say there's a consensus.
That's good.
We get one more, and then we get to PUD, so it'll be exciting.
All right.
I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to say no.
9 o'clock's my bedtime.
I'm so sorry. I know.
No pressure.
Special uses.
I'm
Real
with
quick,
Michelle.
this is, essentially in our land use matrix that we created for residential and for commercial, at the very end of those uses, there will be sections that say like special conditions. That's like for adult businesses or like attached single family where essentially there's multiple housing that are attached together and they have to have separate separation from each other. There's special conditions for certain uses. That's essentially what this is A through D. Is just saying that they have to meet those special conditions as well as just the actual code itself. I think right now we would have one that would be like manufactured homes. They have a ton of special conditions attached to just that specific use. The next one is PUD, and I want to read this specifically. It provides an outline for the process for the type of application without voting going into a problem. We cannot proceed forward with this without knowing that this will not be a problem when it comes up. And I'm not saying that every time a PUD comes, you got to vote yes, but this is something that the city had at one time, they got rid of, and I'm looking to bring it back. I'm trying to think if everybody's been in here for my PUD talk, but essentially a PUD allows for flexibility within a zoning that does not necessarily cater to one specific use. Let's say they wanted to bring we're going to use your, just because that's the first thing I thought about. If we're going to bring, 300 apartment units to a site, but it's also going to be housed with commercial, we don't have the ability to approve something like that. Not at all. Because it either has to be commercial or it has to be residential, or we're going to have to section it out to be one portion of residential and the other portion has to be rezoned as commercial. This just allows for a true development of mixed use to be able to occur. This would not be something that I'm just looking to pass out to a single family residential project. Now sometimes they may ask for a smaller lot or something like that, but it's not necessarily called a PUD. It's a plan like R1P. But again, any of that stuff would still have to come before you all. That's not something that I can approve on an administrative level. But I have to know from you all if a PUD is worth going forward. Because if it's not, and it's something that you're not feeling comfortable with, it is not fair to anybody that's going to come here for the city and apply for that if it's just a no.
I just wanna make sure I'm understanding, cause the PUDs, just like in Lee Summit, Johnson County, I mean, you've got apartments, let's say 2 8-plexes, but then a coffee shop and right?
That's it. Yeah, your typical zoning would not address something
Right.
like that. Yes, sir.
Well, it's basically a mixed-use development,
Yes.
but, yeah, I've got bad feelings because of what's happened before in this city with the PUD. I think developers have a tendency to try and slide around on things like that. Like I say, I think that new PUD or whatever they passed in Belton there that's got 600 apartments and 7,500 square feet of retail space is kind of a sliding around. And I know that it's supposed to come before us, but if there's not an option of turning it down after it's been presented, I'm not happy with it, no.
I'm not saying there's not an option, but I guess if you just hear PUD and you automatically
Say
think
no.
no, that's not going to be beneficial for this board, and it's not going to be beneficial for who stands up here to try and explain to you why it would be a good idea. That's why we're having a conversation now, so that because I feel like we either have to have an open mind to this or we don't. There's two options. There's no real in between.
Well, when we had that PUD before, I don't think anything was ever done with it, was it? Because I was,
Bradley's Crossing came up because of it. Bradley's Crossing was a PUD.
that was before. That was before me.
And what,
About the same time era.
and so
Oh,
help me,
you're on this
Before
board?
I was on board, yeah.
help me remember what went wrong with that that didn't go right.
They
What?
they kept it so condensed down there that there was no green space. If you see the housing down there, it's all so tight in there, you can't even get down that street hardly. They put up, it was supposed to be all different styles of housing or whatever, well, it's all pretty much the same down there type thing.
Okay, but was the city the one that erred in that happening as those permits were coming in and the applications?
In essence, it didn't pass the first time, Larry, and they brought it back again, to be perfectly honest, and it passed the second time after Gene came back from vacation. And it was just a mess. It was, Bill Bright was just, the developer was not easy to work with, and they just did it however sloppily they wanted to.
Okay, but the declarations before or the plan development written description wasn't followed, didn't have detail enough?
No,
or?
it was condensed down, period. They just took out a lot of the green space requirements that the city had requested, or that
Okay.
should have been in there.
I would also say that green space requirements currently to what we would be talking about with the new code would be drastically different. Because right now it is chaotic to try and figure out how we're going to achieve a green space project. Because you give certain percentages for certain pieces of land, and then because it's being used for two things, and how are we going to calculate that? I'm trying to cut that completely out. Like, you're going to pay us in land, pay us in money, or you're going to give us both. And that's going to go before the park board for them to make a decision on their own parks.
Well, my personal feeling for Peculiar is I don't wanna see wall-to-wall housing and apartment buildings and stuff with, like I say, I think our street access is limited the way it is anyway. I don't know if they're gonna expand C and J enough to really provide a lot for us to have good driving. 211th Street is already a mess and horrible to work with. J Highway is starting to fill up a whole lot more, because I sit out there in the mornings, and I'll tell you, the traffic's pretty strong out there, and it never was before.
Yeah, that's mainly.
So
just-
is
So
that,
Bridges
is
shut
that the
down.
only PUD? So
Pleasant
is
Hill.
Bradley's Crossing the only PUD?
No, there was another one, it seems like. Of course, Tuscany came in with the smaller lots. That was probably PUD too,
Okay.
because they came in with the smaller lots.
I didn't remember there being a PUD there.
So you're just against PUDs because they're smaller lots, or that's the variable that slides in there?
Well, it's the smaller lots and cramming them all together, not leaving any space between them.
Okay, so I'm confused. So a PUD doesn't have to follow our existing
Oh, no.
There
No.
are
It's a one-off.
flexibilities. You're right. Yeah, that it doesn't, and that's why again, it's not necessarily going to fit your traditional R1 or R3. Like they're going to look at the plan overall and essentially propose a density. You guys either tell them that's okay or no, it's not. But it's more of a negotiation at the table as opposed to just, well, it doesn't meet code. Yep. Okay.
No.
I just don't think there are many developers around anymore that are small individual builders like there were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They're going to be big companies, and they're going to be doing a variety of things. And I think we're going to have to go with them because I don't think we're going to find those guys buying 40 acres and doing it themselves.
I mean, if you think that C1 is going to be a good zoning for the Dean property to have, a shopping center, nobody is going to do a shopping center that is not supported by some type of residential. They're just,
So that's
But
a
again,
combination of.
and we're talking big properties, the 300-acre Efforts Farm. Like, these are typically not going to be very small. Now, there's some that just, Raymore had one that was kind of center of town, PUD, it was just multifamily. Why they did it, there was a variety of reasons, but they did provide a lot of different options as far as like 1 bedroom all the way up to 3, and then there was a huge like 2,500 square foot.
Is that what that is right on the corner?
Yeah, right behind Mizuma.
Yep.
That's a PUD.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, a lot of those the apartment complexes generally are PUD, but I would say a lot of those also are typically going to come with some type of incentive that is asked for. And so, what are we going to do? Infrastructure that doesn't exist, or something of that nature, Chapter 100 bonds.
And I guess what you're asking here is just, should you even include it so we have a chance to vote? Because if we don't, we won't even have the option.
Correct.
Well, I've got in my opinion, we have to have it. My opinion.
And I mean, it's built into what we've discussed, but I know that there is definitely some apprehension, and I guess I need to make sure that I'm still going the
Is it
right
worth it?
direction.
Yeah,
Right.
I think right now, without having it, we're closing the door before we even open it. People come to us and we say, it's not allowed, sorry. And that's it. And then they just turn and go to the next town. And since I've been on the board, we just turn people away.
I would hope to think that the errors that were made, and I don't describe that there were errors, that we would catch that in the development of it. And not
Commissioner
let that
Dobson,
happen.
I will 100% agree that there was probably some errors. So I mean, I don't know that I could say that with a straight face without. There were probably some errors, whether that be on the developer, city, both.
Right. So,
But
That is something that having Paul on site is huge for.
having Paul on site is huge, as well as you'll kind of see as we get further into this. But again, preliminary plats are going to require the MOU. And again, a PUD is kind of that preliminary development plan with a rezoning. They would essentially, let's say the 300-acre parcel was to be developed and they bring a PUD. They're essentially asking for a rezoning from ag to PUD. And then that PUD is also going to outline essentially what those setbacks are, what the lot sizes are, what uses are going to be there. They're going to have an entire phased plan of where things are going to be located, and that's going to be tied to essentially the MOU. Then when they get to final plat, where they're essentially able to sell these lots, sell these units, whatever it may be, that comes with a development plan, and that essentially spells out what you must do prior to certain triggering mechanisms. Right now, I've been trying to implement those, but honestly, if somebody were to call me out on it and say that's not required, they're probably correct. But it's to try and hold some people accountable, because I know that this board and the Board of Aldermen are definitely tired of getting an old bait switch where we're told one thing and now all of a sudden it's other things.
Right.
That's not conducive for anybody. So if we can sign off on the contract and it gets recorded with the county, that's something that is easily identifiable. I know that obviously we've had staff turnover and those types of things where some of that stuff kind of gets lost in the matrix. But doing the best I can with what I've got.
Yeah.
Is what I think I can do.
Like I said, I think we kind of have it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
You're fine. I guess, so my question is then, so if you did your PUDs and we got a preliminary plat, would we still get a preliminary plat to look at and review? Would we get a review of the final plat then after they've
Correct.
turned it or figured it out how it's really gonna be?
Correct.
And any variations that they would decide, and then would we have that option of voting against it if they change some variations on there? They said, yeah, we really can't put our retail in over there because it's all soggy. So we're gonna not do our retail, but we're still gonna do the housing and stuff.
So your options, again, that's why I love this article, it's in the staff findings of fact. So when we get to final plat, there are 3 findings of fact that they have to hit in order to make sure that, because essentially at that point, and this is kind of that other change, remember how currently we make them do a preliminary plat, do the design and construction, then they have to do a final plat before they've ever even dug into the ground? This changes that whole thing, where essentially rezoning, preliminary plat, design and construction. Once design and construction is approved, they can take that risk, apply for a land disturbance permit, and start disturbing the land. Because at that point, they can't do anything until they get a final plat. So that's their timeline. Is that if it takes them a year to get all the infrastructure in and all that stuff, they can go ahead and start that. And as long as they have the final plat done before they start selling any lots, but the final plat is going to be a very direct impact and precise as to what they actually did out there. We get a lot of final plats that honestly I doubt they're super precise because there's always field revisions. When they get into rock or they get into something, they find out during the digging process what is possible and what is not. We don't even give them that opportunity right now. They have to pay all the money up front to then find out that it didn't work, and guess what? They're kind of upset by the time they get to that point, and so they're not going to tell you a whole lot about what they encountered.
Jim.
So I'm still kind of confused then, because if you say we're getting the preliminary plat to look at.
Yep.
Then they do their construction, which we don't see, that they can start doing all their infrastructure.
That's correct.
Then we get a final plat, then we really have no option of changing it, because at that point in time, all their infrastructure's in, and boy, if we say, yeah, no, we don't like that now, because you change this around and that around, then if there's a big variation between the preliminary plat and the final plat, they've got all the infrastructure in, we don't have a lot of say on it then.
Here are your findings of fact. Is the final plat substantially the same as the approved preliminary plat?
What page are you on?
Page 88. Number 2, complies with all conditions, restrictions, and requirements of the code and of all other applicable ordinances and design standards of the city. And complies with any condition that may have been attached to the approval of the preliminary plat. Those are the 3 findings of fact. So if you want to deny it, it's based upon those 3 things.
So essentially, if I'm understanding right, this is completely hypothetical in Bradley's Crossing. Let's say the final plat, even though it's all been built and it comes through and it's deemed to be substantially different, that's a legal standing to deny it.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Right.
Now, it also kind of, because obviously if you go back to the table, it is me making a recommendation saying whether or not it's substantially the same
Right.
or not.
Right. But at that point, you can tell us, I deem it to be different.
Correct.
Or
Yeah,
obviously, we can't vote on
I
every
don't
rock
get paid
they
to
hit.
lie. So if it needs to be denied, it needs to be denied. If it needs to be approved, that's my
Right.
professional opinion that it needs to be approved.
Right.
Based upon the findings of fact that are here.
Right.
And is someone monitoring that between
Absolutely.
that construction?
Absolutely. There's a public works construction inspector
Okay,
that watches all the water, all the sewer, all the road, the compaction test, the asphalt test, like everything.
correct. That's going to match the preliminary
Correct.
drawings.
Correct. They'll have the preliminary drawings to look at and say, this is where it should be.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, in the past, we didn't have that, and that's why we're in the situation we are in.
We had a gentleman that we paid on an as-needed basis, and he went out there for a number of hours and was really kind of unchecked.
Hey, I promise this will be my last.
Yay.
I promise. Okay, my example, I've used it before with you, Dylan, and I'm not saying anything bad against it, one way or another, is Timber Creek, what are they called themselves? Wooden trails over there. The factor that they were gonna put in the lake behind there for their detention, all of a sudden, you know, after they got their final plat, it's like, oh yeah, we can't put in the lake because there's a problem here. To me, that was a major change, because that's what I said, the people behind there, all the neighbors and stuff, and said, okay, well, we're okay with this. And then all of a sudden, there's 2 detention ponds instead of a lake, which is a whole big, because that was part of their, their or good things. Here's the things we're doing for the citizens of the area
Yeah,
there.
I mean, selling
And so
points.
instead, they put in a pickleball court or something like that, that, is not near the same thing as a lake, in my opinion, so. To me, that would have been and I did vote against it because of that factor, that they changed that.
See, and I can understand that, you know, people may enjoy the fact that it was a lake, but to me, that is essentially the difference between a detention pond or a retention pond. It is still stormwater, and as soon as it is not dumping more water than what's already out there, and it's been reviewed and approved by our engineer, I
But
don't
see,
see
the
that
lake
as-
was supposed to be an amenity, not just a detention pond. It was supposed to have fish in it,
And they had to do the final plat before they could ever dig, right?
Pardon me?
They had to do the final plat before they could ever
They
dig to
could
find out.
they tested beforehand. They didn't do it.
Jim, this is not to put you down, but you can only do so many like geological digs that don't like waste the bank, and you're hoping that you dig in the right spot. Like that.
Well, that's where they were gonna put the lake, so hopefully they dug in the right spot.
Sure, but I mean, there was many lakes. I mean, there's 3 out there right now. Like, I mean, you don't know what you have until you can actually get into it, not just, you know, to
Okay,
see, okay,
but then,
cool,
like I
that's
say,
the one
to me,
spot's
that
good,
was a
but-
change, so then I would go, yeah, no, I don't agree with it.
And I guess that's why
And
there's
so
a
I
checks
can
and
use
balance.
findings of fact to say, yeah, that's not the same thing that you promised.
There's a checks and balance. Again, that table says that I provide a recommendation. You then look at that recommendation. But again, if it's recommended that it's approved, I don't know how we make too many changes on that. But again, I'm trying to do the best I can with. If there's something substantial, they're going to have to come back and say otherwise. But
All right.
I don't see that
I'm
being a
done arguing my
substantial
point for the night. Thank you, guys.
If that had been a PUD, and they'd have been able to dig for the final plat or whatever, then we can come back and say, oops, nope, you didn't do that right.
And honestly,
we
I
could've-
would have come back and said, okay, so you said this was an amenity.
Mhm.
You need to find some way to make this up in some other direction. It's not like phase 2 or 3 is already done and developed. I mean, they have the ability to do something else. But if
To
they
offer something else.
yes, that was part of your amenity package. You now can't do that. So now what? But you can't do that if you've already approved everything, and now they're finding, well, I can't do it.
So a
It makes it
PUD
tough.
would have been beneficial there?
Well, so honestly, just the process would be
Yeah, with
beneficial.
having the final review. like
Yeah,
you're saying.
whether it's a PUD or a preliminary plat, it doesn't really matter. It's the timing that a developer has to be able to go out and do something before they actually start selling lots.
Yeah.
And that final plat essentially allows them to sell the lots. Now, if they had, let's say they said they were going to do 25 lots, and all of a sudden they've got 40. That's a substantial change. That is not something that we were ever told. That is probably taking up more land than we were initially talked about, or the setbacks or lot sizes have changed. That would be substantial to me. Now, they tend to lay out a phasing plan. Now, if they say phase 1's going to be 44 lots and it ends up being 60, that's not, as long as we've approved the density of, let's say it's, 200 lots over 100 acres, right? As long as they don't exceed that density or exceed those lot sizes, they're still within a substantially similar project
Yeah.
from the final plat to the preliminary plat. PUD or not.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Concerns? Go ahead.
I'll just voice, I think we have to put it in our plan, because I think what's going to be happening is going to be more likely to be PUDs than anything else. I just don't think the small town developer is going to exist any longer.
You hit the nail on the head when you said that originally, dude. It's corporate built. I mean, it is what it is. If you want buildings built, you're gonna find a way to let them work.
Okay.
Zoning variance is pretty simple. If they don't like my decision, it goes to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and then we go from there. Also, there's some times where either a hardship exists or a unique situation with a lot or a building exists, and we look at that on a case-by-case basis. If it's not something that I can approve, it can go to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. That's essentially what it is. Floodplain development permit, essentially that doesn't go to my department, and thank goodness that is the case. Our Public Works Director or City Engineer gets to look at those permits, make sure that those are compliant with the state, make sure they're compliant with FEMA, all those things. But that essentially just lines out, kind of the requirements, what we can require, what they need to submit, and it kind of helps them provide a process for what that looks like. Appeals of administrative decisions. Essentially, if I say somebody wants to, good thing. So there was Bob Schmidt who came and wanted to do a third car garage, and essentially I couldn't do it on administrative review. This would allow me to do the 10%. However, if let's say I said, well, the whole rest of the development doesn't have 3-car garages, it's only 2 throughout, and I don't really see the need for this, they could essentially appeal my decision to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and they could look at it. But that's kind of if I make a decision based upon the code and they don't like it, they can appeal it. And subdivision review and plating. This just talks about outlines the multiple applications that have been filed. For instance, a rezoning and a preliminary plat at the same meeting can be heard at the same time. I know that's been kind of a point of contention here, is where somebody will come in for a rezoning, you don't necessarily see everything, so you're not really sure what you're approving, but staff's telling you to rezone it, right? This kind of allows and kind of promotes the fact that, like, hey, we kind of want to see a preliminary plan as well as the rezoning, so that we kind of understand what we're rezoning and why, and do we like the project, is it neat to go, those types of things. So that's kind of what this section is. Minor plats, those are done on an administrative level. It's up to 5 lots. Essentially, if you, let's say you own 10 acres and you want to split it into 2-acre lots, and it was already zoned R1, as long as the zoning's in place and it meets the code as far as setbacks and just the size of the lots, we can do that on an administrative level, not necessarily have to come and bring that to you all. Typically, what you'll find is a brother wants to sell it off to another brother who wants to live on the same land, and that's kind of what that is. You see that a lot up on like Knight Road and those types of areas. Preliminary plat. This kind of really the big thing that this adds is the MOU requirements. Memorandum of Understanding. It's essentially a contract that's required by the city for any preliminary plat, and that kind of outlines the city's responsibilities, the applicant's responsibilities, and then that we generally take that and move it into a development agreement that will essentially get reported with the county. Construction plans is reviewed by Public Works. That's kind of what we were talking about. Construction plans are very similar to a site plan. It's just, water, sewer, where those are going to be located, the profiles, and those get reviewed on a staff level. Once those are approved, they can apply for the land disturbance and kind of move on. Final plat, again, this is what we kind of talked about with the findings of fact, those 3 findings. It doesn't require a public hearing. It is an ordinance still, so it will go in front of the Planning Commission as well as the board for 2 reads, but it does not necessarily have to be noticed in the paper and all of that stuff. Lot splits, those can be done on an administrative level. If essentially they have, a 2-acre piece of property and they want to split it down the middle and make it 2 1-acre pieces, or sometimes you'll see it for multifamily where essentially it's a duplex and they just want to split it off and sell 1 unit and keep the other. Those are other options. Condominium plat review. I really hope we never have to do one of these, but it's all manufactured and regulated by the state for Chapter 448. We actually have one in town. It is a nightmare to do anything with, but we have it. Site plan review. This is kind of what we talked about. If you guys are comfortable with that still being on a staff level or not. I know we will have to change the wording in here because right now I didn't know where you were going to lay, so I wanted you to see the wording. I wanted you to see the wording as it would be if it was to go to the planning commission. Essentially, I can do things on a staff level for up to 5,000 square feet, and then everything above that kind of goes to planning commission. That's kind of how it was, but if at all possible, I'd like to keep it on the administrative level. But I kind of provided those two options. Vacation of easement and plats, and also just like utility easements or right-of-way, those are the same kind of thing. They each have a different process, but they're all kind of listed underneath this section of code. And what the procedure is, the applications you fill out, and kind of the things that I have to notice and talk to you to make that happen. We don't get them a lot, but they can happen. For instance, let's say Meadowbrook Lakes didn't end up getting, they don't go forward with anything. It would be good for like staff to say, hey, it's been 5 years, there's an approved plat, we just need to vacate it. That would be that's not what staff wants, it's just an option and an example. Building permits, those are done on a staff level. We do that administratively each and every day, all day long. Sign permits, same thing. Interpretation, this just kind of says that it gives me the ability to make a interpretation of the code in writing, and then that's what kind of then says, okay, they either take my opinion and say, yep, it's good, or they take my opinion and say, that's a crap opinion, we're gonna appeal it. And this is essentially what that process is like. Let me know if I'm going too fast, but I can feel the crowd. So, administrative adjustments.
You turn the air down or something.
This just allows me to be able to make 10% like administrative adjustments for anything that regards setbacks, lot sizes, lot width, building coverage, height standards, or anything within the landscaping and screening standards. You'll notice some things in red. Don't worry about the things in red. Those are in legal's hands. We currently don't have a board of appeals, and that's essentially what it says to appeal these variances to. So we kind of need Carl's opinion on whether we need to establish a board of appeals, or if we can have it be appealed by some other board that already exists, or if it's even needed. So, sorry you couldn't read it. It sounds like it definitely hurt a few eyes, so I apologize.
Yeah, I truly could not read it.
Got it. Finally, the replat. It allows me to do a lot combination, addition of land to a lot, adjust a lot line, or reconfigure a lot that is within recorded plat. So you can't necessarily replat something that hasn't already been recorded, if that makes sense. But it still allows me on an administrative level to review those and approve those as needed. That is the conclusion of Article 11. I'm so blessed to have been able to present that to you all, and for how long this took. I appreciate you guys for kind of staying and being good sports. So, anything else?
I do have a question.
Yes.
And it's not on this, but when this special use permit comes back at the next meeting,
Yes.
there won't be a public hearing, it'll just be a vote, right?
We'll still talk about the changes that were made.
Right,
We
right,
won't necessarily have public comment.
right. It'll just be more just our regular thing in it. Sorry,
Yes.
talk with my hands. And then a vote.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. Hopefully. I mean, you guys could decide to table it, but hopefully we get it figured out.
Will the public possibly show up at that one too?
Well, and that's why I was very intentional by saying April 9th. So if they do want to come,
Yeah,
they
they're
absolutely
free
can.
to, yeah. But
Yeah.
It just, there won't be a public hearing to where I have to notice it again in the paper. Now, I will have to notice the BOA again, because that is something that we never held, so.
I suspicion the property owner may come back with some alternative solutions too.
My fear is it won't be the same as what he said tonight.
I'm going to
That's true,
go off
too.
on a limb, and I've been doing this a while. I've never heard somebody necessarily offer up what they did.
No, yeah.
Typically, they get asked by the planning commission, can they, and then they say yay or nay. He was very forthcoming to just come and say, hey, I've heard the concern, let's fix it.
Right.
I've never seen that before. Never.
It's one of the reasons it killed me to say anything, but.
So, you know, and I think I've told several of you, this applicant is, I've never worked with an applicant quite like them. Anytime I asked for them to do something, they did. No questions, no whys, just they did.
Do they have other convenience stores around town in Kansas City?
They gave me a couple of sketch drawings, but every place that I looked at, it looks like it's undeveloped, but I can't, if it's an old outdated map, I don't know that for sure. So unless I drive to 86 State Line or State Ave, that, you know, I could see it,
Okay.
but very willing to do whatever we asked, and so I highly doubt that will change going forward.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Oh. Larry,
Yeah,
you have
we're
something?
ready for comments from
Oh.
staff,
Are
or
we
not
ready?
from the staff,
for
I
that?
should say, from us.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say you guys.
Oh,
were first.
department, we got department reports. I kinda got the
Okay.
cart before the horse.
So I will apologize. Given the fact that we changed from Word to Google Drive, I've been kind of banging my head a little bit on the monthly report because it just didn't come out the way I had hoped. So it is not valid or available just yet. So I
Okay.
will bring to you a February and a March for our April meeting. So I do apologize for that.
Yeah.
We haven't sold a whole lot of single families, so honestly, the lot inventory that you get every month, it's gonna be the same. But,
Okay.
that is all I have. I think Scooters is planning to open March 20th was the date that I was given.
Well, they're working hard over there.
They're trying. They are trying.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Now-
a drive-through.
Now, are we ready for commissioners' comments? Like,
I have a long list.
oh,
St. Patty's Parade is Saturday this week on Broadway, beginning at the three-legged water tower and going down to the parking lot. There'll be some minor floats, man-powered floats. You'll be voting on the best float by bringing canned goods or non-perishable goods to vote for the best float, and that food then will be collected and delivered across the street to the Baptist Church food pantry. So the Broadway group is doing that on the 14th, beginning the parade's at 10 o'clock, and it probably won't last past 10:30. So, and Mr. Wells is involved in that, is helping announcing. I'm concerned about at Scooters how they're going to accommodate the ADA on that sidewalk. I'm looking at that. They have the driveway coming out, and the sidewalk on each side of it are about 2 foot lower. So how is? Because we saw. I'm so happy that would happen in the winter time. Yet I was stressed because at least 2 different times I helped someone in a wheel vehicle get over on the other side to get across the street because of the sidewalk being closed there. So
The only requirement they would have is their ADA map or map on both sides. Like, they have to accommodate for the driveway. The driveway does have a bit of a slope.
It's not you don't go inside of it, so it's a drive.
no, you're talking about getting across
Across
it, aren't
it.
you?
Mhm.
Yeah, across
Across
the
it.
driveway.
yeah,
Across
the driveway is here and the sidewalks are down
Uh-huh.
here. And I'm wondering because that is a highly traveled vehicle
We'll
for
look at it.
wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works, their construction engineer or construction inspector would be looking at that, but I'll bring that to her.
So just look at because I'm concerned about how that looks like they're going to have to go back to the property line and begin sloping
Sure.
to get that.
Well, they're definitely not at final grade. I mean, the rain really held them up this last week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
In the next few days, you'll be seeing lots of signs. I'm on the school bond election committee, and there'll be a $43 million bond issue going forward. And a no tax increase, obviously, like any other entity, if there's no tax increase, it simply means that the bonds are extended further down the road, but there'll be no increase in taxes for next year. And it's to do several items. You will be seeing lots of signs, hopefully. So that's April 7th, the same day as the election here for the city. So if you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk about that issue and bring some information to you about it. How many of you get the school newsletter via email? Okay. And would others like to? Because that is a very informative little piece of paper that not piece of paper, a very informative thing like Shannon's community chamber news. I think it's very enlightful about what's happening in the school. So give me your email and I'll.
Usually Jenny sends it to me.
Okay,
My
but
daughter.
if you haven't got it, you can simply go to RP Update and apply for that. It comes out, I think, every week, and it's just informative about what's happening in the school. And it's a new person doing it this year, and it's very, very, very well done, in my opinion. Do we know what's happening to the Britton property? We know it's been sold. Do we have any ideas as to what that happened, where it went, or who got it?
You've got me, Commissioner Dobson. I have not had anybody come to me to talk about that property.
Okay, and I just know that it closed is all that I know.
We found that out too, but it's not to a group to our knowledge.
And there's an advertisement in the paper that says the Department of Transportation will be holding a seminar on J Highway in the month of May,
I saw that.
and lots of information about what's going to happen to J during. I don't know for sure that said when, but it's just what's going to be happening. There'll be a roundabout put in, several turn lanes put in, and a lot of improvements. But there will be an informational meeting about that held at the school. I think it's on May 9th. It's the date that I was. May 19th. Okay, I was almost right.
May 19th at the school, high school.
Right.
Good, they need that for sure.
Yeah. So those four things are
I'm
happening.
sorry, do we know what time that is?
It's May 19th, and it's at the high school the auditorium, is it? But I can remember when we had that about the bridge going over 49, and.
May 19th, 4:30 to 6:30. 4:30? High school. Perfect. Well, 801 South School Road. Perfect.
And then to go ahead, Carrie Hart will be here. We'll be doing a street cleanup day on April 18th, Saturday. And as always, we would love to have anybody participate, help pick up trash. We'll make a world of difference on the city's roadways coming into town when the trash is picked up. So we welcome anybody who can participate. Reported on what I know about.
Thank you.
Other
A
than
lot.
Anybody else? Dylan, thanks for all your hard work on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Okay. If there is no other comments, will we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.